Welcome to the mobile conversion micro course. This is another session. This is session 4, and it tackles a challenging problem. How do you express your value proposition in the limited canvas of mobile? Look at this example. Ask yourself a simple question. Without knowing the actual words or seeing the actual images, what would you change in this mobile process? Now, if you're not sure, if you look at that and say, I could never know just looking at this layout, then you're probably missing something that we're going to teach today, and I will show you the outcome. I will show you how we solved this riddle, but what would you do? If that's all you had to look at, where would you bear down in your optimization efforts? Let me help you a bit. Take a look and you'll see that right here we have the control landing page, and there are two products being talked about in this space, side by side. And these two products represent a sort of site flow interrupt in that you came expecting to see one, but you see two. Then you see an interstitial that sort of interrupts, and we all know that can create problems in Google itself, but there is an interstitial. And of course, then you get to the payment details page. And what you may note is that 48% never make it off that first page. That is unacceptable. If that happened in a retail site, in an actual store, they'd go out of business. But also 31% who make it to the payment page toggle back. Now, as you're looking at this example, you're looking at a universal problem, a problem that many people with their mobile, especially in responsive design, many people in their mobile path experience. What can we do about it? Let me help you understand. And to do that, I'm going to share with you not the actual treatment yet, because I'm going to build that with you in your mind, showing you the logic of our approach. But before I do that, I will show you what the impact was. And bear this in mind, this was one of the largest brands in America. A 5% increase would have been dramatic. 3% would have been very, very good. This is a 14.5% increase in revenue. So there's something vital here to learn. And as you think about that, let's just keep moving. The goal here is to make this session as dense as possible. And I want to teach you 3 key principles that will apply to any mobile environment. The first one is the importance of M4l. In the mobile environment, you must use the M4l concept, but especially, it's especially important in mobile. Here is the problem. We've seen this before. Look at the difference in the canvas. Communicating value with this very limited space creates a special set of challenges. How do you do it? Well, the key is you've got to achieve the most for the least. And to do that, you need to understand a certain Venn diagram. And within that Venn diagram, you need to understand some of our previous teaching. So I'm going to link you to that, and it doesn't cost you anything. But I'm going to take the essence of that teaching and share it with you right now. And then I'm going to take it further than I ever have before in one of these lectures. So for those of you that have studied our value proposition model, we talk about 2 dyads, and we ran 20,000 plus path experiments in our research lab. We also did 10,000 plus value proposition based experiments. We worked with the man who invented the word, Michael Lanning, and then created all of our science to test and improve and refine the utility of the model. I can't go there, but see that link? You can learn what we discovered with that link, and there's no cost. I just want to help you with the information so I can save time now. And I want to share with you a word that every marketer hears, but most infrequently do I hear one that fully understands what's behind that word. That word should create a conclusion. You don't make claims to get appeal. You foster conclusions, and the first conclusion is, I want this. Now, a lot of us know how to write copy that's designed to get people to want something. But we seldom understand the intersection between that conclusion and another, which drives enormous value. That other conclusion is, I can't get this anywhere else. Now, that might be just a slight preference, anywhere else just like this. But the just like this must matter. Google, when it first launched, wasn't that much better than everyone else, but it was good enough that we preferred it. And that preference has helped create a giant with nearly 70% of the search space. And they could have more, they just don't want it. They'll be in antitrust suits. So look for a second. Because the zone where the two overlap is going to be the most important thing I can tell you about mobile. You could talk a lot about appeal, but if you say too much, people won't even be able to process it. You can talk a lot about exclusivity, but if you say too much, you'll take away the room you need to talk about appeal. And again, they cannot process it. Your essential message lies in the overlap, those appeal factors that have an exclusive component that would help with the hearing of this message. If it was clear, we'll talk about that. If it was credible, we'll talk about that. They would conclude, I want this and I can't quite get it this way anywhere else. Now, I've got a few slides. I'm talking without notes. I'm talking about territory that we spent years researching. So flow with me, think about this with me, and I'll stop and interrupt myself and be as natural as possible to help you learn as much as you can in this short period of time. But I want to make the importance of the first point essentially clear. M4l, the most for the least, occurs in that shaded zone, the overlap, where the essential message all by itself helps to create the I want this and I can't get this anywhere else factor. All right? If you keep those conclusions in mind, let me apply them. I'll only touch this. We did this with the limitations of the mobile environment, and Smash Magazine just wrote about it. You can read the article, perhaps it'll help you. Just remember, when you come to our sites, they're not the example for you to follow because they're full of testing ideas, and we're constantly updating them, replacing them, changing, and you may copy something that we are just testing. With that in mind, though, I would get super practical. In your effort to achieve M4l in the mobile environment, you may find that some version of emphasis, and remember the key is to emphasize M4l, some version of emphasis may be challenging. For one thing, interstitials don't translate well into the mobile environment and they can penalize you with Google. What you're seeing is an interstitial from Mech Labs. I want to take you to the link that you see on this slide and just move, really, let me just move through the web page and share something with you. Take a look quickly with me because I'm going to touch this very fast and let you go back to it as a reference, but it's interesting. We asked our optimization trained designers to come up with ways to achieve the interstitial impact without using an actual interstitial. And as I look down here at my tablet, I'm going to slide the page up and you're going to see we talk about the problem and then we give you examples. A sticky banner and how we used it. Example 1. Example 2, a sticky banner with click to expand. Example 3, an alert bell. Example 4, a message with the alert bell. Example, and it goes on. I want you to be able to look at the article because this will give you actual design devices you can use to emphasize the core message. And it can be very powerful in getting your point across. That brings me to my second point. Now this is very critical. Insufficient value becomes the same as too much value. That sounds like a contradiction, but it's only a paradox. Because both exacerbate the difference between perceived value and actual value. And all that exists for you in the mobile environment is perceived value. If it's not perceived, then it'll never be received. So it doesn't matter what value you have, it only matters what value you can communicate. And sometimes too much is the same as too little because it's not perceived. I'll give you an example. This is actually, again, referring to my tablet. I'm going to the website itself and you'll see this is the top of the page. Now students are making submissions to this class and we're drawing from students and examples on the internet. All that I want you to see, however, is that this page does not answer the most essential question. If I'm the ideal customer, why should I shop, purchase from, choose you rather than anyone else? Where's the answer? Where is the value? I see dry goods, tops, bottoms, jewelry, dresses. What is that all about? That is just navigation, and navigation doesn't matter till you make it matter. And you don't make it matter in this sort of void that you've created at the top of your page. I mean this graciously and I want to help you, but my point is this is an example of where there's insufficient value. And that's one problem. But now let's look at a huge company, done some research in the past with this group. They're a multi-billion-dollar company, and they have a different problem. As I start to scroll down, can you see what it is, marketer? Can you see the danger here? This is a page which has too much declaration. It's not just declaration, it's too much. And it's not just at the text level. As you scroll down, you'll see that there are giant images associated with nav. One of the problems with responsive design if you're not careful. And those images aren't really bringing clarity, they're just making the page inordinately long. They're not delivering value, they're not doing anything. And so what you have is another example. And the interesting point, the curiosity here for me is that in both cases that we've looked at, one with too much and one with too little, you get to the same problem. No perceived value or insufficient perceived value. So you've got to solve for that. And I want to show you how we thought about it here, but just take a moment to see the third problem. And that is too many offers. Now these are three problems, three dangers that you've got to watch out for. In this case, only 2 offers was too many offers. Why? Because people were coming expecting one offer, and then suddenly they have to process and parse 2 separate offers in a very small space. And in doing so, they don't really have enough information to make the decision well. In which case they make no decision, which becomes a no decision in this case. And so you've got to learn how to manage that, and you've got to watch for all 3 of those. Now my time is almost 12 minutes. I only have 3 or 4, and yet the most important things I have to say are in point 3 right now. I'm going to tie this all together. You'll notice the words. Ultimately, value must be emphasized. This is in the mobile environment. You emphasize using that essential message we saw from the Venn diagram. It also must be layered. For those that need more, give them a way to click, but don't force all the information on everyone. Understand where they are in the thought sequence and give them the appropriate level of value. It must be layered and it must be sequenced. Sequence is critical. I will show you. This is an example of a site that does a good job. Now, they do a good job on one component and miss it on another. They don't really emphasize the essence of the exclusive value. That would be that essential message. But they're getting away with it because they have 100 years of brand, or however long they've had. It's an old brand. If you have a new brand, do not make the mistake of copying the older, bigger brands, because they can do things you can't. We worked with the New York Times, but the average city paper cannot copy the New York Times strategy. The New York Times is a global media brand, and copying the New York Times, which so many did, leads to disaster. And I can tell you it's the same thing here. So they're missing it, but they're getting away with it. Now, if they know this and they're doing it on purpose, fine. But the truth is, for people who aren't sure they're going to work with U-Haul, there's nothing here to indicate that you should work with U-Haul. And there is none of that as sort of essential message. However, it's still probably reasonably successful because many people are familiar with the brand and it has some trust. That's the power of brand. Brand is rich in the mobile environment. Brand is more important in the mobile environment. Now, as I'm sharing that with you, let's talk about what they're doing right. They are layering, and if you were to look at it, it sort of works like this. If you complete this little 4-part piece, and it's not very long. If you look at the bottom of the page, is small. Is short. If you get to those 4 pieces, you see this, and you make your reservation type. It's very clear. It's very easy, and then select your pickup location. Each of these information clusters have been simplified and they have been layered. Now, I have worked with huge brands that have long and detailed online processes. In fact, in this very space, and even with the biggest storage companies in the country. And I can tell you that you may be looking at this and saying, well, yeah, but I don't have an online process. I'm trying to get people to purchase. Everyone has an online process. Even a content site has an online process. An online process is just a mental path, and the principles that we're talking about apply to every mental path online. So layer, and then sequence related offers. Sequencing is very important. It keeps me from having to make too many decisions at the same time. Think vertical, not parallel. In fact, let me help you with that by going back to the original. We're almost done. What you can see is actually what we did now. Let's look at the treatment. We went from this, which I've already explained, to this. And without any text, you should be able to see the difference. There is one offer, the one they expected to see, laid out in vertical fashion. There are only two steps with greater clarity, and it is this clarity, not a change in the price, not a change in the offer, not even an essential change in the message, that produces a dramatic increase in revenue. Now, what can I do in 30 to 60 seconds that will help you take all of this and apply it in a more effective way? I'm going to take you through a 7-step criterion. It's been carefully developed to help you think holistically about your current path and the way you're presenting value. Here are the 7 steps. 1, am I relying on my brand to communicate my value proposition? Think about that. Unless your brand is as big as U-Haul, that could be a mistake. And even if it is, and there's good competition, that could be a mistake. Have I communicated the essence of my appeal with the optimal combination of imagery and words? That is that essential message. Are using both imagery and words. Waste no images. Use them precisely. Use them to communicate that essential message in that shaded area of the Venn diagram. Have I communicated the essential difference? What is it that I have said that would foster this conclusion? I can't get this anywhere else. Until you have done that, until there is an only factor, until one of your words has an EST, like largest, and you back it up, fastest, and you back it up with quantifiable information, then you're leaving people to too much unsupervised thinking. All right? Number 4, have I compromised my message to satisfy my business stakeholders? I see this all the time with big brands. Our mobile environment suffers even more painfully than our desktop environment when all of these stakeholders are vying for space on the canvas. Keep it clear, simple, natural, focused, linear. Number 5, is there too much of the same thing on the page? Too much sameness creates blindness. And watch for that. Number 6, are there too many competing elements? That's not the same. This isn't sameness. These are boxes and banners and ads and offers that interfere with my linear progression. And finally, have I sequenced my cross-sells and my upsells in a natural way, where they naturally would occur in the thought sequence after someone has sufficient clarity to process the next offer? I have to stop. I hope this helps you. Our goal is to continue to do research and continue to get it to you in some sort of digestible format. Thank you.